Gachiakuta is not too far from reality. That's probably not the first thing you thought to yourself when watching this anime. After all, a world where rich people live on a floating island, throwing their trash onto the poor people below, and where the trash turns into giant monsters, doesn't exactly sound like our world. But if you read between the lines, you start to realize that the world of Gachiakuta isn't that far from our own. Beyond all its symbolism, Gachiakuta shows many parallels with the society we live in. To begin, I think it's important to talk about when Gachiakuta takes place and how the world ended up the way it is. The writer purposely leaves the timeline ambiguous. It could be 2010, 2025, or even the far future. We're never told for sure. Technology in the story doesn't look far ahead of ours, but the floating island hints at something deeper. Maybe advanced tech exists, but it's gated by the elite, kept out of reach for everyone else. Personally, I like to imagine Gachiakuta happening in the near future, maybe around 2045, let's say, 20 years from now. My theory is that the world collapsed after some kind of war or massive rebellion, and the rich elite escaped to their floating island to avoid both the wrath of the people and the consequences of their own actions. And this isn't just fiction. In our real world, billionaires already buy bunkers or houses in places like New Zealand to prepare for disaster. The elite is always ready to run away, and Gachiakuta's island is exactly that idea taken to the extreme. The rich flying to an untouchable paradise in the sky, while those left on the surface starve and fight for survival. It may not look obvious at first, but Gachiakuta mirrors reality. Because just like in the manga and anime, we, the working and middle class, are left to live with the consequences of pollution and exploitation. Also that some billionaires can enjoy their 4th yacht and 5th mansion, while the rest of us deal with the fallout. Just like in real life, we can divide the world of Gachiakuta into 3 different classes. At the top are the island dwellers, who represent the elite, politicians, CEOs, and corporations. At the bottom are the people of the surface, the forgotten, the poor, the homeless, and the working class who barely survives. And then there's the middle, the so-called poor side of the island where Rudo lived. Even among the islanders, inequality exists. These people are not as wealthy as the elite, but they're not as broke, debatably, as the people of the surface. They represent the middle class, technically inside society, but trapped in cycles of exploitation. They cling to the little stability they have and sometimes even defend the system or turn against those below out of fear of being cast down themselves. Gachiakuta shows how oppressive systems pit the poor against the poorest, so the elite remains unchallenged. This elite we've been talking about seems to manifest in 3 different ways on the island. In political theory, power often gets broken down in 3 main types: the ideological power, the coercive power, and the political power. And Gachiakuta represents those 3 types of power perfectly. Ideological power is represented by judges and high-ranking elites who manipulate the narrative, spreading propaganda in the name of justice and order, echoing the way religion, mainstream news, and internet is being used in real life. The coercive power is represented by the enforcers, who carry out the will of the elite, arresting, punishing, and throwing off anyone who resists. They represent the real-life police and military power. And political power is represented by the judges that are supposedly neutral but never rule against the elite. Instead of delivering justice, they protect the system and punish innocents, representing real-life judges that would rather protect their overlords instead of delivering real justice. Controlling those 3 ensures the control of a population, but it's not enough. The elite needs more than this to be able to run a problem-free society such as the one on the island. Which brings us to talk about all the propaganda and deception present on the island. The island's population is kept entirely unaware of the world below them. Even most of the rich side islanders don't know about it. Only the super elite class, the true rulers, are aware of the surface, and they make sure the population stays in the dark. When Heaven Dweller throws someone off the island, it's seen as if the person simply ceases to exist. Executions are framed as acts of justice, a way to rid society of criminals and undesirables. In reality, they are nothing more than a tool of fear to keep citizens obedient. If someone dares to question or speak about the world below, the elite can silence them by branding them as undesirable and throwing them off the island. Gachiakuta pushes it pretty far, but our reality is yet again not too far from it. Medias are owned by corporations who decide which narrative to push. Hollywood is run by a group of elite producers who can decide who to picture as hero and villain. Religious figures can lie and push false narratives that followers will accept as reality in fear to be called a heretic. And social media radicalizes and allows the elite to push narratives by paying influencers and other figures. Every aspect of Gachiakuta's dystopic world has a counterpart in our own world, which means that we're not that far from reaching dystopic status ourselves as a society. It seems like it's only a question of time before the Gachiakuta prophecy becomes a reality. Ultimately, Rudo represents us, the you and me of society who fights the struggle against injustice and oppression. Accused of a crime he didn't commit and sacrificed to maintain order, he survives against all odds and joins the lower class because he didn't fit the mold anymore. He became a problem. His mission is to return to the island, spread the truth and dismantle the system built on lies and deception. But climbing back to a floating island isn't easy, and this also mirrors real life. Escaping ignorance and fighting such a powerful system is incredibly difficult. Just like in Plato's allegory of the cave, doing the right thing is never easy. Still, Rudo's journey shows that even if the fight is long and dangerous, it's worth it in the end, or at least I hope it will be. Gachiakuta doesn't simply show us a good story, it shows a possible future, what our own world could become if we let the elite control us and go unpunished for too long. You should not discard this show as just an anime, you should instead see it as a serious warning. I would tell you to like and subscribe, but it would probably go against what this video stands for, so instead of doing that, just make sure you keep fighting the good fight, and I'll be seeing you later. Bye bye.